Hi everybody, it's Roderick here, talking about the most valuable wedding gift as I'm launching my Kickstarter. Today is Friday, the 25th, I believe, of September. And one of the aspects that this is a learning process for me, and I'm going to walk you through some of the things that I've encountered, and they're not necessarily bad or negative or just complete successes. They're just part of the process. And maybe if you down the road go through this, it's just things to consider, and I'm really going to try to address it from a balanced approach. And one of the things is that when it comes to Facebook, first of all, I'm on Facebook, but I am part of the demographic that will look into different aspects, but I don't post a lot. I don't post a lot about my own personal situation. I don't post a lot when it comes to the different groups that I'm in. But the different groups that attract my attention, I would put them into probably three buckets: things that have to do with sports, things that have to do with relationships, things that have to do with money. That's kind of 90% of my life. And when I wrote this book, the most valuable wedding gift, a guide to money conversations through partnership finance, there were some natural groups and pages that I think made sense. Now, pages are the actual kind of the company, then groups are obviously a collection of other people on Facebook with a common interest. And I would segment those into these buckets. There are groups that are in the parenting bucket, okay? There are groups that are in the wedding industry. There are groups that are in the faith-based field, and some derivation of those two. And then there's groups that are focusing on what kind of decisions that we're making now. And then there are groups that are making decisions in the future. Okay, and I separate those two because I think the type of questions you receive in those two groups may be different. Okay, and one of the things that I found about myself is, and this is just a acknowledgement, I think, and I'm not putting it above my head, I think here, I speak here, and I tend to write somewhere down here. And it's really easy for me to not convey, not only using the right words, but the right tone when I write. And that's why the editing for the most valuable wedding gift has taken so long, is because there are things I'm thinking about, but I'm trying to find the best way to say them. So that's one aspect. But regarding these groups, one of the things I thought about, I was like, wow, I could really, add some value. And what happens is that there are some things that I always go in there just to kind of, look around and just hear what people have to say. I think that's just something, just even for people, thoughts and concepts that I may not agree with their perspective. And in the book, in the communication, I talk about this concept of, being able to not necessarily agree, but understand other perspectives, being able to, see it from the other, some other shoes. And I think that was something that, helps me when I go through and listen to these different, not only Facebook group, but just how we receive information. You're going to receive it in different formats. And I was thinking, gosh, this book is really relevant. Wouldn't it be nice to kind of just, make these people, these different groups, help them become aware? And then I kind of had to step back and go, well, let's walk through this. First of all, somebody took the time to create a group, and it's not easy. And they took a lot of time to, help people, understand where it is and what it's about. And there's administrators, and then there's moderators, right? Administrators, those are people who are kind of, responsible for like the name implies, admin. And then there's moderators, those are the people that are trying to keep the discussion in the right direction. Depending on the topic, it's interesting. We find that a lot of these conversations are what we have on a daily basis. The question becomes, are we able to share those in a way that is productive and hopefully elevate the awareness and the acumen, depending on what topic we're talking about? Are we able to raise that level? And I acknowledge those two groups, the two people, admins and moderators, and sometimes, it's held by the same person, is that it's not easy. It's not easy because they're tasked with doing two things. The first is that they're tasked with basically becoming a guardian of this group that they've kind of developed, and they're really they're protecting, right? And those are protecting it from the barbarians at the gate. When I say barbarians at the gate, that's not a negative, but let's be honest, there's a lot of people when it comes to these different topics, they're trying to get in and they want to promote, right? And so there are rules, regulations. Most of them are fairly standard, I would say, that, you know, we want people to contribute. We want people to, you know, not attack other people, respect others' views. And another one is we want people to, you know, not self-promote. And I completely understand it, because if you think about it, like, you have a group of people who are, you know, sharing their thoughts within a specific topic. It would be very challenging to have a productive conversation when you have people just coming in and just, you know, hammering them, oh, buy this, buy this, buy this. I get it. I completely understand. But on the other side, the other challenge they have is, as they foster, you know, information, is what is the right way to really start to not only hope to help with the conversations that are happening in each of these groups, but how do you bring in outside resources? There are barbarians at the gate. And when I say barbarians, I'm being facetious, but there are people out there who are trying to sell you something, but they're not adding a lot of value. That's clear. But then the question is, how do we get some of that stuff that's outside the castle in the castle for the benefit of the people in the group? That is a challenge. It is not easy. And with the understanding of that, the question becomes, what are ways that you can engage the members? Because, you know, let's be honest, once you're in a group for a while, some of the questions become very, you know, similar, and you're not really adding a lot of value. And sometimes you just really are putting a lot of fires of people with just two different viewpoints. And so then the question becomes, how do I provide a different way of providing content? And one of the things I found that was, a way to do that, and it wasn't from my idea, it was just something I saw, was that people did some Q&As in the group. And I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of helpful, because it really allowed this, you know, how do we address these questions instead of having to scroll through all the different discussions and kind of go through some of the back and forth that you might see in the messaging. The second thing is a dialogue. It's between two people. I think that's so much more helpful than just speaking about in front of the camera like I am. As, you know, entertaining as I might be, it's so much more engaging to have this content in a kind of back and forth, and then allowing people to ask questions. And then it starts to become a little bit more structured, and I think that's a value. So that's one of the things I think that could be available to these groups is like, hey, do you have a Q&A with someone who's an expert in the field? Not necessarily just, you know, myself, but other groups, you know, like, how do you bring someone in? And the assumption is at some point they may have something that they have to offer, but you're extracting the value of their expertise. In the book, I talk about team. Your time, your energy, your ability, and your money. Those are the four things that you have to give in order to live a better life and enjoy it, what have you. And in the groups, we're not asking for money, but it's your time and your energy, right? They want you to post, they want you to reply, they want you to ask questions. And part of that is the team component, the time and the energy. And what I would say is that the third one is the expertise. And if you can somehow take from the outside the expertise, bring it in a way that's acceptable to the group, that might be something to consider. Now, again, there are rules and, you know, that are put in place for a reason. You know, don't self-promote. So, you know, if I came in there and just started, as great as I think the most valuable wedding gift is, that would not be okay, right? And I've done it before. I've done it to a group, and when I said done it before, I did it in a way that was unknowingly, and they're like, hey, we had to take it down because it wasn't appropriate. And that was, 4 years ago. I didn't understand that, and now I do. I mean, after I did it, I was like, oh, I can see how that came across. It wasn't saying, hey, you need to work with me or whatever. It was just about it. Very similar concept, but it was a little different. But then the other thing about it is, if you have rules, would it be feasible to put it out to the membership if this is something that they would want to hear? And that is part of having this group, is saying, hey, you know, there might be some content that might be helpful for you. And would you be interested in listening to this? Not just having someone just, hey, here's, you know, the idea. Because in that case, even the person who's delivering, even if they have the best intentions, they tend to kind of, position it in a way that's difficult. So if you have someone kind of asking questions and moderating, having a dialogue, I think that's actually a pretty good idea to, engage the membership on the specific topic. And then obviously you can have guidelines on how you want the conversation to go. But I just think those are so much more engaging when it comes to this content. So I think the takeaway on this is, as I'm thinking about this topic related to those groups I outlined before, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, and not figure out's the word, but is there a way that I can expose this so people can make active decisions? Because I could say right now, if I go into a financial, group, and there's a bunch of them, I don't want to name their names because, that's not, as 70% of you will understand where I'm coming from, that I'm not trying to call out a group. The 30% of people said, he's trying to, shame you. And I'm like, that's not even the point of what I'm trying to do. I'm just giving you perspective for your own, edification, but also just walking you through this process of this, me, trying to get the word out. And for financial, I understand the challenge. There's more challenges when you talk about finance. One is that the topic has this taboo component, even for people in the field, it's tough to talk about. Two, if someone has taken the time to develop a group, they tend to have an area of expertise. Sure, they have an interest. That's almost a given. But they have an area of expertise. And if you have someone that comes in, it can be somewhat, I don't want to say threatening. There's a word that I'm looking for that's less than threatening, but it could be something that you're just a little bit cautious of, right? I say in the financial field that, when I talk about things that are financial related, it's like applying to a daycare with an eye patch and hook for your hand. You may have the best intentions, but people are going to be leery, right? So I get it. I understand. But I think the third aspect of it is that the group, not just the moderators, they are very leery of outside counsel or just thoughts. And the analogy I would use is my nephew was staying with me for about a month as he's working online. He lives in California, and he's in high school, and he's taking algebra. And I'm like, oh, algebra. And I'm like, man, what if I, first of all, if I had to, I would literally go to the class to make sure that child would go to class. I would literally attend class with him. But that would not be good because I could see myself in the back, and the instructor would ask a question. I'd be like, I know the answer, right? I mean, that's how you feel when you're in these conversations. You know the answer. It's not just an answer from the standpoint, this is exactly what you're doing. The other aspect of it is that they're not, sometimes they're asking to go there and they're heading over there. And in the book, I call it, the Marco Polo effect, right? You're playing the game Marco, and they keep asking questions and they're heading over here. And you're like, your answer's over here. Just, I don't, as a professional, and ask any financial professional, they're like, I'm not doing this so I want your business. I'm doing this because you're heading the wrong direction. You're not heading in the right direction to get to where you need to go. Not saying it's the wrong answer, not the wrong question. It's just probably not going to achieve the real root of the problem. And so I think what we're trying to do is, as professionals, is just help. And I could tell you there are people who have really bad intentions. I understand that. But having worked in the field for over 20 plus years, I know there's a lot of people that would love to help with zero. It's almost like you can mask their name, mask their face, and just answer questions about, at least address it. And answer is kind of even a very condescending way. It's just address how we would think about these things as professionals, people who work in the field. And I think that's an interesting concept, like really just getting to the heart of what is it that people are really trying to get at and move them forward in their journey. And so again, when I come across these groups, I think that when I see them, and I try not to post too much. And one time someone was like, hey, he owns his own financial firm, he's trying to become clients. I'm like, I was not look, not trying to be funny. I am not trying to get any of these people for clients. I'm not. And I'm just not. What I'm doing is like, these are some things to think about. And I'm really trying to position in a way that it's providing an additional alternative perspective and maybe filling in some gaps, some additional things they may want to think about. And that's kind of the whole purpose of the book. Confirm what people have, what they know, because no one's starting from zero. 2, provide maybe a slightly different perspective. And then 3, maybe fill in some gaps and address things that they didn't even consider. So anyway, this is a long-winded answer, a way of me addressing the Facebook groups. I don't know if I even have a endpoint of like, hey, you need to do that. I know in sales, that's what you need to do, is just end with, hey, what's the next action item? But I hope that this video walks you through some of the challenges of the groups that a lot of us are in, and really starting to think, how can I help improve this group? And I'm not saying pull in every vendor out there, but how can we improve the conversations that are in this? Second is, if you are a moderator and you're like, okay, I'm curious, well, these are the challenges I'm aware of, and maybe it will help you, think through some, not only this solution, things I talked about, but things that might be helpful for your group in general. And then third, I'm always asking additional questions and kind of working through some of the challenges. If you, going forward, were to think about trying to promote something and you're thinking, okay, this would be a perfect way to introduce you to a group, understand the challenges that are there, because they do have processes, they have structure, they have rules in place to protect the integrity of the conversation inside of these groups. So hopefully that was helpful. But again, I think this is just part of the process. I'm learning. Hopefully I've shared some things that you found helpful. Again, Broderick Givens. Look forward to connecting soon.